So if you followed us over here from Reimagining Star Wars, then you're midway through what I call the Saw Gerrera arc. The main issue with this one is that without the support of the people, there can be no rebellion, true rebellion. You can't overthrow and rule a nation without the support of the people. That's the idea. And so far, there's nobody that the people trust and feel safe with. So when the fake king goes to kill or execute the real king in order to stop what he thinks is rebellion caused by him, or an effort that will stop the rebellion, that's what leads the Onderon insurgency to mount a rescue to save the real king. However, Ahsoka, who is now their only advisor, thinks this is a foolhardy act, and that ultimately it will lead them into a position where they cannot fight their way through or into or out of, and it will be the destruction of their insurgency group. Now, also what happens is that Steela is chosen to be the leader of the Onderon rebel forces. This does not sit well with Saul, who thinks he is the better leader, and unwilling to wait for a formal plan to come together and wait for the right time, he acts immediately to save the king, and leads pretty much a lone man assault to try to free King Dindum. However, he is captured and tortured by the now droid General Kalani. While Saw Gerrera's action is foolhardy, it does force one action. It does force General Tandon to start making decisions and come down on what side he's on. Of course, Steela and Ahsoka find out about Saw's capture, and Lux wants to rescue him, but they have to make a decision to whether to save Saw or to save the real king, and they choose the real king because it's what's best for Onderon, not what's best for their feelings. However, it turns out that the fake king intends to execute them both at the same time. So when they mount their rescue of the real king, King Dindub, then they're also rescuing Saw. However, without Saw and other forces, they're not as strong as they were. And now, with new droids there, the commando droids, then they are unable to defeat the forces of Kalani. And when all seems lost, and it looks like a suicidal effort, the real king, Dindub, asks them to lay down their arms. However, Kalani and Rash intend to use this as an opportunity to execute them all. And it's at this time that General Tandon makes his decision and orders his forces, the royal forces, to aid the side of the rebels, and they're saved. With the king on their side, now they have legitimacy, and the king is now able to make decisions as a wise ruler, and he decides the trust of the people is the best way to secure Onderon from the separatists. All right, we're at the last episode. Take it away, Santa.
Episode 5, Tipping Points, is the last part of this 4-part story arc. And in this episode, everything's culminating to a head. Of course, Saw Gerrera and King Dindub have been captured and then released. So here they're fleeing, and they're gathering back together, and King Dindub realizes the value that Steela has brought as the leader of the rebellion, and he gives her sort of a battlefield promotion, makes her the commanding general of the armies that are going to fight back against the resistance forces. Just before they go into war, Steela kisses Lux, and Ahsoka's watching that from the side, and Ahsoka's had this relationship with Lux now going back, and she's kind of struggling with her emotions as she's been feeling a little bit of jealousy. You can see it as she's been near Lux through this story arc, and she's learning where those emotions need to be compartmentalized, and allowing those emotions to be managed. So I found it really interesting to just watch Ahsoka as she was kind of battling with her emotions. And there's a scene where Anakin even talks to Ahsoka about her emotions and how he understands that. So Anakin can see it as well because, of course, he's felt it himself. And I wouldn't put it beyond Obi-Wan also recognizing it because he went through the exact same thing. And what we see here with Ahsoka is she's more going the route that Obi-Wan did than the one Anakin did. Anakin's jealousy cropped up, and we saw that a couple of times in earlier episodes when Anakin and Padme was with like an old flame, and Anakin was up to shenanigans trying to keep them from having time together, and so he got very possessive and he got very involved. And Ahsoka, on the other hand, she has these same emotions, but she's learning that she needs to make this choice, and that for her to do what she needs to do and what she is being led to do as a Jedi means that she needs to let those emotions kind of go. She needs to manage them, learn how to have some control over them, and not let them take control of her. So it's this story arc as a whole, the biggest value comes from seeing Ahsoka's growth, and this is one of the major areas that we see her grow in through this arc, as well as her military leading and learning about not leading necessarily as a general in charge, but from behind and from a support position. So we see the rebels draw the droids out of the city. We mentioned before that the civilians were kind of caught in the middle, and what the rebels do is they draw the forces out into the mountains to have this war, this battle. And as the battle kind of increases and it goes to full scale, Ahsoka calls back and asks for help because now it's blown into full out war. We've got battle lines, we've got full on combat happening, and so she calls for support. And again, Anakin and Obi-Wan won't concede, especially Obi-Wan. He's that's not our role, right? We're not to go in there in war. And again, it's just the juxtaposition of that with how Obi-Wan has been called to support, and the Jedi have been supporting the war at a bigger scale. I find very interesting, and that conflict there isn't necessarily resolved. So, but as a result, they said we can't officially condone this, right? We can't officially jump in and support the people in this fight. They have to do it themselves, but they do a back channel. The back channel, it goes back to Hondo, and this relationship with Hondo, and you start to see why he's one of my favorite. His sense of humor, his approach to things is quite entertaining. I absolutely love Hondo and want more of him. But they decide to go to Hondo, and Hondo lets the bygones be bygones, right? He's just like, what happened in the past doesn't really matter. I'm after what I can do now that's most profitable for me now. And so they make him a deal he can't refuse. He takes off and delivers these very necessary support to the rebels so that they can fight back against the resistance armies that are now much stronger. So not the resistance, but the separatist armies that have come out. So the separatist armies are way stronger than the rebels, and so these arms come just in time. They've got these rocket launchers, and they start to take out some of the heavier battle instruments that the separatists are using, primarily these flying ships. So they're taking out these flying ships with these rocket launchers, and Hondo makes quick work of it. He gets in, drops off the weapons. The battle starts up, and he's like, "Oh my! Look at the time! I've got to get out of here!" And off he goes. So the tide shifts in favor of the rebels. Rebels take control, and through the course of the battle, Saw Gerrera fires off the last of the rocket launchers at the last airship, and that airship takes damage. And as it's flying out of control, it crashes into the mountainside underneath where Saw's sister is standing, and that cliff breaks away. Ahsoka's up there to help save her, and as she's pulling her up, Ahsoka gets shot in the shoulder from behind, and Saw's sister Steela falls to her death. And Saw takes this very heavily, thinks that he caused it in effect by shooting down that airship, and he has to be kind of consoled about that. As a result of all this war, Steela becomes a martyr. She's recognized publicly in the square. Everybody comes to pay respects to her, and Dooku cuts bait and leaves. Dooku has the general that they put in charge, or the king that they stood up in front of the people. He has him assassinated, and then he pulls all these armies back, and off they go. The planet is then freed, and that's where we end the show, is with that ceremony for Steela, and because there was this relationship between Lux and Steela, and then we've got this Ahsoka coming in, and Ahsoka talks to Lux there at the very end, and through all of this thing, this war, Lux has now changed from not wanting to be part of the rebels, part of the Senate, right? The established government. He doesn't want any part of that. Now he decides that he does, and so he's joined in with the war effort. They're winning hearts and minds. What we see in this whole story arc now is that they're beginning to win hearts and minds, and the war is turning against the separatists. So that's where this story arc ends. It's a very, very good story arc from seeing Ahsoka's development, and as she becomes more and more a central figure, that makes this story arc more and more critical to watch. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's required viewing, but I would definitely say that it's strongly recommended as far as understanding how Ahsoka gets to where she is by the time we start season 7. So we'll leave it there, and we'll start the next story arc in the next video. You guys take care, and may the Force be with you.
Thank you for listening for what we consider the Saw arc. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And the next episode's coming in a couple of days. The end screen will end up being right here when it's done. See you there.